Week 15 of the NFL season is with us. Fantasy football playoffs start right now. In fairness, they've actually already started on Thursday night, where hopefully we had tons of points and hopefully all your players scored points, unless you're playing against me. But we're going to be taking you through every single game on Sunday. Myself, Luke Elder, alongside Tom Collins. We're looking forward to the playoffs, possibly, well, definitely more than this week, but we've made it. That's the first part.
Yeah, we're into week 15. I mean, it feels like the season's gone so quickly. I've said that before in about week 10 or week 11, but it's really flying by. We've got a good slate of action. Obviously, our two teams meet in the big game this week on Sunday Night Football. So looking forward to that. This weekend's action is pretty good. Some big crucial games in terms of playoffs, implications for the actual teams, and then obviously the fantasy aspect as well. So yeah, I feel like we should get stuck into this. I need to make amends for last Sunday, where I did poorly with my selections. You were a lot better, especially that bet builder that you put up. 3 selections in the Atlanta-Minnesota game. Very well done for that.
Yeah, Drake London did make us sweat. I'll be honest on that. But literally, it was one of the last catches of the game. He went a yard over our line, which was nice, but I would rather you do it in like the first quarter, Drake, next time. That would be absolutely fantastic on that part. But that was last week. I was 4 from 6, still didn't manage to get the play of the day in. Chase Brown let me down on that part, but we will go again this week. Subscribe down below, leave a comment as well. We did put a comment out or message out on the Thursday Night Football preview. We're talking about the Fantasy Football League that we're going to be doing next year on the Turf and Touchdowns podcast. Thank you to everyone who's registered their interest. If you are in or want to be in, leave a comment down below. I'll add your name to the list, and then we'll be doing stuff before next season to put that all together. But let's start off in our normal fashion, Tom. Let's do What on Earth. I'm gonna go to you first. I'll allow you to take the floor.
Yeah, I'm going to keep this really quick as well because it's an uplifting What on Earth. Look, last week I was fuming. You know I was fuming watching the games on Sunday. I didn't want to bring that to the podcast again. My selections just weren't it last week. So I'll leave that alone. I'm going to bring some positivity to the podcast. I'm going to say, what on earth, NFL? Now, this applies to NFL superfans, casual fans, those who watched it for the first time on Sunday. That slate of the late games starting at 9:20 p.m, only 3 of them was phenomenal. There were 3 action-packed games, loads of offense, not many turnovers, not many sacks, not many defensive plays. And yeah, there will be the odd guy who loves, watching some guy sack a QB for -9 yards or watching a run for -1 yard. Most of us don't. Most of us want to see points. We want to see action. We want to see our fantasy players score a lot. And that was exactly the case. Firstly, we had the Buffalo Bills against the LA Rams, arguably the game of the year, 44-42. Josh Allen put up the most points ever by a quarterback in NFL fantasy history. He even beat Michael Vick from around 2017 when he had that game with 6 TDs. It was a crazy performance, crazy game. That was the highlight of the week. The other 2 games were pretty good as well. Obviously, they were in the shadow of the Bills-Rams game. But that slate, I think, was 3 to 4 hours of just amazing sport. Brilliant entertainment, fantastic to watch. And it really kind of perked me up after the 6 p.m. slate where not many things went right. So what on earth, NFL? We love you.
I'm going to try and knock you back down because I'm going to pick on you guys. It's rivalry week. We've got Seattle taking on Green Bay. We don't like you guys this week. We're not friends. But we've both beaten the Niners so far this year. We've got that part in common. And last week, you did a terrible job at trying to beat the Lions. You were in the game, and then in particular your play calling was absolutely atrocious. You guys kept on giving the ball to Josh Jacobs, and admittedly, yeah, it worked, but you're down, you're behind against the best offense in the NFL. You're taking time away from yourself that you need later on in the game. Jordan Love, this is a bit biased because I was with Jordan Love on the over passing touchdowns and also the over passing yards. He did actually go over on the passing touchdowns, and then it came back, which was awful, but he threw 20 times in a loss. Do better. That's terrible. 12 completions for 206. It worked. It was a terrible piece of game management from Green Bay. But look, if you guys want to do that again this week, that's fine.
I think we will lean quite heavily on Josh Jacobs. I'm still reeling from him not covering by a yard. So yeah, I'm not going to really say anything against what you've just said there. We probably should have called better. Matt LaFleur probably regrets a couple of decisions, but we gave the Lions a run for their money. They're a good team. They'll probably be the number 1 seed in the NFC. So, it's a good enough performance. If that happens in the playoffs, my response will be a little bit different.
Yeah, that'll be more throwing stuff. We did see a few people actually, by the way, on Thursday night comment down below regards to a forfeit, regards to whoever loses this week's matchup between Green Bay and Seattle. So I'm not going to mention anything on that, but if you do have any good forfeit ideas, leave them down below.
Yeah.
We'll like to hear those, and they might be carried out next week. Rather unfair on me because we're like 2.5 point underdogs, but I'm an entertaining guy for the show. I will do it. Let's talk about SBK as well, our sponsors for this podcast. They will, if you go over to their app and make a new account, place £10, they'll give you £40 in free bets, and also the fun part, 25% on the ACCA boost. You get that on top of your winnings on this weekend's NFL matches, whether you prefer Tom's selections and my selections, mix and match, or you want to put your ones in there as well, or maybe smush them all together. That is absolutely fine. If you put them in an ACCA with SBK, you'll get 25% on top of all of it. Max stakes, T's and C's apply, 18 plus, and please gamble responsibly. Now, Tom's going to tell you there's a link down below.
There's a link down below, guys. And I love a point as well. Luke already mentioned that in the horse racing podcast. If you haven't seen that this week, go check over on our page and watch that after this podcast. Don't miss out on our actual NFL picks. Otherwise, you've watched about 5 minutes for no reason. There's a link down below. Sign up, SBK. Take advantage of those offers. I've worked for them for a number of years. They've been fantastic in regards to offers and actually just as a place to work when I used to be there full time. So guys, go and do it. It really does help us as well and yourself by getting the extra returns if you find some winning selections. I know someone had an issue with player props and trying to get the ACCA boost last week. I am in touch with the guys at SBK just to make sure that is working. But I know the ACCA boost definitely works for teams if you wanted to play, handicap against the spread, money line, etc. So go and take advantage of it. Links down below. And thank you very much for SBK for sponsoring this podcast.
Yeah, we're not as pretty faces. We get stuff done. If you've got problems, we'll try and get it done. We'll at least give it a go anyway. We'll look like we're doing something. But let's move on to the games this week. I'm going to let you go first because you've got 5 this week. I think this is about the first time you've outdone me with selections. I've got 4, you've got 5. And you're going to start off with a guy that I'm just delighted that we're watching playing football this year.
Yes, I completely agree with that point. I'll get onto it in 2 seconds, but as I imagine people have probably skipped along the bar to this point because they know it's the first pick. Please subscribe. Luke's already said it, but please subscribe. We're on the road to 500. Whack that button, whack the bell notification so you don't miss out on any of our podcasts. It's very much we're very much grateful for everyone who subscribes. So please do that right now. Okay, first pick, a guy called Nick Chubb. He suffered catastrophic knee injury in college, and then he did his other knee in the NFL last year. So, he's coming back off a long recovery mission, and he's played in 7 games this year. So it's not like he's coming back instantly, and I'm expecting a big workload. But he's had 7 games. He seems to be grinding out some production. He's not the Nick Chubb that we saw a couple of years ago, that's for sure. But hopefully he can cover his line on Sunday. I want over 40.5 rushing yards. That's a 10-11 for the Cleveland Browns against the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, you're probably thinking 2 things. 1, 40.5 is quite a low line. I agree with that, which is why he's my selection, my first selection anyway. And then you're thinking, against the Chiefs, I don't know about that. Okay, perfectly plausible. The Chiefs have given up the 4th lowest amount of rushing yards per game. They're giving up around 88 yards per game to all players on opposition teams. So I understand that they have one of the best run defenses at the moment. Secondly, the Chiefs are obviously very good, but they are beatable. And I feel like we're saying that every week. They are beatable. They're not losing, but they're beatable. They win 1-score games constantly. It's not like they're blowing out teams like the Lions have been doing. So put that to one side. I think the Browns at home are going to kind of keep this game going for a long period of time with the Chiefs. Kansas City may come out on top, but that's got no reflection on this player prop of Nick Chubb over rushing yards, unless they go up big early, and then I'll be cursing. Right, so the positive for Chubb is that he's been getting healthier, and as players get healthier, they get bigger workloads. That seems to be happening with him. In the 7 games he's played this year, listen to the teams he's faced in regards to their run defense and how good it is. Cincinnati Bengals, gettable, but still a pretty good run D. Baltimore Ravens, awful through the air, good run D. LA Chargers, good run D. The Saints, okay, they're beatable. Denver Broncos, one of the best run defenses, and Pittsburgh twice, one of the better teams this year. I mean, his matchups have just stunk this season. Mm-hmm. That being said, he has actually covered his line on 4 of 7 occasions so far this year, despite not putting up the big numbers. So he's done okay. Cleveland have been putting the ball into the hands of Jameis Winston every week since he's come in for Deshaun Watson. It's worked, but only to some degree. This week, I think they've got to rely on Nick Chubb. You have to waste time against Kansas City. You have to have long drives, keep Mahomes off the field, and hopefully Chubb will easily hit his line at 41 or more yards in this first matchup.
I've noticed that Jameis Winston is a name that you struggle with.
You love pointing out things that I struggle with, don't you?
Yeah, I've got a list. Do you want to see it? I hang it up in my bedroom. I've just got a list of things that Tom struggles with. I was going to try and mention something then that was outrageous, but I was like, nope, can't go that far. We're going to save that one for the playoffs. That'll be further down the line. But I was going to put up in this game David Njoku. Love David Njoku if he plays. However, yesterday he got downgraded, and now he looks like he might be a doubt for the game. If he does play, 9-4 anytime touchdown, it is a very big price. But I don't know if he's going to be there, so I'm not going to put him up as a selection on the podcast. I've only got one game that I'm focusing on in the 6 o'clock window, and it's 2 selections, 1 guy. So I'm going to do both of those at the same time. Our friend Adam Thielen, who is back. He's back and just dominating in the NFL. Him and Bryce Young have continued their rapport. His over-under receiving yards is 50.5. I think that's super low, is 10-11. And the one I love out of the two, even more than the receiving yards, his over under 4 receptions is 4.5. It's 20-23, but my goodness, if he doesn't go over that, I'd be absolutely shocked. Look, he's been Bryce Young's favourite target since returning from injury. He's only had a couple of weeks of a full game. Both me and Tom used him a couple of weeks ago when he managed to go over, and he's not just been sort of scraping over. It's not been the Adam Thielen that we saw last year, where every single pass is just a little sort of 5-yard screen, 5-yard slant, and then he'll pick up 5-6 yards, and that's it. He's being used properly. And more importantly, Bryce Young looks good. I didn't envisage saying this at the start of the year, but Bryce Young's looked very good. So, in recent times, obviously he got benched, but I do like where Bryce Young is at the moment. In the last few weeks as well, he's had 10 targets and 11 targets for 8 and 9 catches. 99 and 102 yards in those 2 games. That is something I can very much get on board with. He's got a lovely matchup against Dallas. Dallas have allowed a 100-yard receiver in 2 of the last 3 games. Admittedly, Jamar Chase and Terry McLaurin, 2 of the better receivers around, but they've also allowed plenty of yards to other wide receivers, even when they weren't wide receiver 1 on their team. This is a winnable game as well for Carolina. We've not said that too often this year. They almost beat the Chiefs a few weeks ago. They're not a bad football team, Carolina. They've done a complete U-turn. Dave Canales has done a fantastic job down with the Panthers, and I do think that Carolina will once again be competitive in this. Look, Dallas are a team that are struggling as well. So Adam Thielen over 4.5 receptions and Adam Thielen over 50.5 receiving yards. I am all in once again on Adam Thielen, Tom.
I kind of hope he doesn't cover either, purely because he's on my fantasy bench, and I'm not going to put him on my starting lineup.
In redraft, he's in my starting lineup, so I need this.
Yeah, that's fair. Hopefully he does cover for the podcast, but for my personal sake, I'll be a little bit gutted if he does, because I probably should have played him. Okay, my last 6 p.m. selection is going to be Tyreek Hill, and it's over 66.5 receiving yards at 10-11 in the game between the Miami Dolphins and the Houston Texans. I've tried to avoid Tyreek all season. Look, in week 1, he was kind of immediately back into action where we saw him last year. He was thriving, going down the field, catching bombs for touchdowns, and it looked like he was going to have another brilliant year. He went so high in fantasy leagues this season as well. Everyone thought Tyreek was going to be this outstanding wide receiver. It hasn't worked out for him. That being said, in the last 2 weeks, his production's got a lot bigger, and I feel like Tua Tagovailoa is kind of thinking, we have to use Tyreek. We need to win these games to make the playoffs, and if we're going to do so, it's going to be down to Tyreek and Jalen Waddle, as well as Devon Achane. You know, you can't put everything on Achane and win these games. It's just not going to work. So Tyreek's production's been going up. They face the Houston Texans this week, and everyone who watched the Anti-Post podcast that we did for the NFL Super Bowl this year, and any other really NFL podcast, you know that I liked the Texans coming into this season. I don't hate them at this point. I don't love them as much as I did back in week 1. They're a good team, but they're very susceptible to big plays on defense. Their defense just isn't holding up, despite the fact their pass rush has been incredible this term, Will Anderson especially. So there is like a mixture there. If Tua Tagovailoa gets time in the pocket, Tyreek Hill is definitely going to hit the over here. If he doesn't get time, then we may be struggling. But the line is set to 66.5. He needs 67 plus to cover. And this is Tyreek Hill. We know he can do that in one play, two plays. It doesn't have to be 8 catches on 10 targets or anything like that with Tyreek. He's very explosive and he could do this immediately. He, in the last 2 games, has faced the Jets and the Packers. He's been double covered on a couple of those. He's also been against very good corners. This time against Houston, it's not going to be the case. I think they're going to kind of be looking to stop Achan and trying to rush to us. So I'll take Tyreek. Hopefully he covers. This is the first time I'm playing him this year. And the line's low. If you remember back in week 1, I think his line was set to like 90, and now it's down to 67. So give me Tyreek.
I remember last year his line was 110 at one point, and I bet the overs, and he covered it in like the first quarter. It was ridiculous. I think Houston should just put everything on the field defensive wise to stop the main offensive asset for the Miami Dolphins. Of course, I speak about Johnny Smith. He's been ridiculous. Did you see last week? He didn't have a single fantasy point going into overtime, and then he just won the game single-handedly for them. I think it was 3 catches, and then he found the end zone. It was absolutely wild that Johnny Smith has become such a big thing in Miami, but it works.
It was brilliant play calling in overtime, actually, because he was a guy that wasn't even looked at in the whole game. And then they used him to brilliant effect with 3 catches, as you say, 44 yards and a touchdown. Great play calling. He has been very good, but Tyreek is still the man there. I know I'm not saying that to convince you. You already know that, and everyone does. But Tyreek is still the man. He is still the first read, and hopefully he covers this week.
Yeah, that's Tyreek Hill, Tom's latest selection. I'm going to look towards the Detroit Lions because they are in a just delicious matchup with the Buffalo Bills. I think the over-under is 52.5. There's going to be points in this game. There will be tons of touchdown scorers. I'd imagine both probably Montgomery and maybe Gibbs will find the end zone as well. But we're not going to do that again because Ben Johnson screwed us the last time we tried to do that. We're just going to look at David Montgomery because Buffalo, great team, been a good team all year. Still not good against the run. They haven't been for the entirety of the season. Last week, Kyron Williams and Blake Corum, they combined and put up over 100 yards together on the ground. The Bills in that snow game blew out the Niners a couple of weeks ago. Jordan Mason still had a good game. He went over 70 yards. The week prior to that, Kareem Hunt had 14 carries. I think he had about 60 yards on that. So you can still run on the Bills. And look, Detroit, I don't remember the last time they were behind in a game. They are always either level or ahead. They always come out early. And generally, Dave Montgomery comes out early. The first drive generally is his. I was looking at snap percentage, Tom, for David Montgomery. Terrible. Absolutely awful. However, if he's out there, he's getting the ball. That's kind of the giveaway. His last 5 games, his snap percentage, for a starting running back, which is what he is, even alongside Gibbs, you generally want 75% plus. His percentages for snap share or snap percentage has been 40, 39, 29, 54, and 45. But he's been very good in each and every one of those games. In the last 5 games, he's scored 5 touchdowns. But his over-under this week on the rushing side is 57.5. I think that's quite low. I think he could cover that early on. Like he didn't quite cover it against Green Bay last week, but they were in control of that game, and Jahmyr Gibbs was coming in as well. He was very good against Chicago in a revenge game a couple of weeks back. I think David Montgomery is going to have another good week. Honestly, I think this could be a game that both Gibbs and also Montgomery cover. Gibbs has got a slightly higher line, I think about 67.5, but I like Montgomery. I think 57.5 is okay. And for the second time in this podcast, Tom, I'm going for someone who's on my redraft team as well. So please, Dave Montgomery, just have a good week. I've got Gibbs as well, but
I'm sensing a bit of bias, because in Thursday Night Football, you also went for 2 players that you've got in a fantasy team, or one player, whoever it was, 2 players.
Incorrect. Yeah, so, one player, 2 bets.
I feel like there's a bit of bias going on, guys. If you are playing linked selections, bear that in mind.
Honestly, love my redraft team for this week. For the next couple of weeks, I'm not sure, but I'm against my brother. I have to win this one. I can't let him have family bragging rights.
Yeah. What I will say about Montgomery, you talked about the snap share there. When you watch Jahmyr Gibbs, I think it's obvious why he's got quite a low snap share. Gibbs is extremely dynamic. I think he's one of the best running backs in the league, if not the best, in terms of with ball in hand. Saquon Barkley maybe slightly above him, but the remainder, I would take Gibbs over the rest of the running backs. So I understand why the snap share is low. You did mention 29% for a game 3 weeks back, I think, with Montgomery. He sat out the fourth quarter due
Yeah.
to an injury, so that was kind of, that wasn't his true snap share percentage. But anyway, hopefully he covers. This is very much a game, isn't it, with the Lions and the Bills, where we could see a lot of points, much like the Bills v Rams last week. And you're going with the running back. I'm going to go with the wide receiver, and it's Amon-Ra St. Brown for the Detroit Lions. Give me over 69.5 receiving yards at 10 to 11, so we need 70 plus to strike with this one. Look, I like star wide receivers this week. I've already mentioned Tyreek. I've already mentioned Amon-Ra St. Brown, so give me both of those. If you watched the Bills last week, Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua just ran all over the corners. They weren't even open and they were catching balls. That's how dominant they were. And yes, Amon-Ra is not the same player as Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua, really, but they have kind of the same skill sets. Insofar as they're not deep guys, they catch slants, they catch crossing routes, 5 and outs, 10 and outs. These are the guys that teams rely on critically for first downs and making big chunk plays. Amon-Ra is kind of going to have the same kind of opportunities that Cooper and Puka had last week. Amon-Ra has actually been a little bit disappointing in terms of yards he's got per game this year, but he has been finding the end zone a lot. Obviously, that doesn't help this selection because it's not an anytime touchdown pick. It is a receiving yards pick. But I feel like the Bills are going to try and stop Gibbs and Montgomery. They may not succeed, but they're going to try. Everyone knows that this is the best running back tandem in the NFL, and they have to stop them. If the Lions run the ball, play action comes into it. Jared Goff just has a free time in the pocket just to find whoever he wants. So they have to stop the running backs. Amon-Ra is going to be one-on-one on plenty of occasions. And I think he covers it.
One thing I like about Amon-Ra St. Brown is this is nothing against him, because I was going to say he has a tantrum if he's not as involved. But the last few weeks, he's not been as involved. But it's more of a Dan Campbell thing going, oh, shoot, you didn't catch many balls. My bad. Let me get you. We've got this.
Yeah.
You're going to be involved this week. Look, 3 weeks ago, he had 62 yards on 6 catches. He only had 5 catches against Chicago, but he went up yard-wise 73. Last week, he had 43 yards. This has got to be an up week for Amon-Ra St. Brown. So I don't mind that on the Lions side of things. You've got 2 selections left. I've got 1. I'll let you take the floor on the next one as well.
Okay, yeah. It's my final play on Sunday. I have a Monday Night Football selection coming up, so just wait around for that one. Final play on Sunday, Trey McBride, over 68.5 receiving yards, which is very high for a tight end, but he is the best tight end in the NFL right now. That's at 10 to 11. He plays for the Cardinals against the Patriots. It's a game that Arizona should definitely win. The Patriots so far this year are giving up 50 yards per game to tight ends on 5 catches, on average, of course. This isn't every single week, but on average 50 yards and 5 catches. Trey McBride needs 69 to cover in here. If you've watched the Cardinals over the last 6 weeks, or actually the whole season, you'll know that McBride is the number 1 target for Kyler. It's where he looks all the time. And not only is he the safety blanket, but he's also the number 1 read on down the field routes as well. It's basically Kyler Murray and Trey McBride and James Conner. Forget Marvin Harrison. Michael Wilson hasn't existed until like last week. It's literally just McBride. Kyler Murray goes like this. McBride. That's what he does in every single snap.
I love that. I love that. That was wonderful.
Clip that. In his last 3 games,
you sat back to do it. You're like, I need to give myself more room here. I'm going to do this properly. All right. Right.
In the last 3 games for McBride, he has got 15 targets, 12 targets, 14 targets. For a tight end, you don't see numbers like that. Since Rob Gronkowski days, Travis Kelce, yeah, sure, maybe last year. This year, not so much. They have equated to 133 yards, 96 yards, and 70 yards. If he hits that, any of those again, he'll cover this. They're going to be looking to Trey quite often in here. He's very reliable in catching the ball as well. He doesn't drop ball hardly ever. He's basically Khalil Shakir in tight end form. I think McBride easily covers. He's going to get a lot of production, and when a player gets production, they generally hit their overs.
How many receiving touchdowns has Trey McBride got this year?
I actually don't know. I'll go for 5.
0.
Is it 0? Okay.
Which is bizarre. Not that it bothers you
It
for this week, because it's receiving yards. He's got 1 rushing touchdown. I think that was a fumble into the end zone, and he just fell on it.
It was.
But 0 receiving touchdowns, which they need to sort out. If you've got Trey McBride in fantasy, though, you're still happy because you are getting so much usage out of him the last few weeks. 15 targets, 12 targets, and 14 targets has been absolutely insane for Trey McBride. Look, one selection a piece for the pair of us. So I'm going to go with my one now, and I'm going to take another rare handicap pick. I think the Denver Broncos -4 against Indianapolis. We did this 3 weeks ago when Denver were -5.5 against the Raiders. Honestly, we got a bit lucky because the Raiders tried to convert and they tried to get a touchdown literally last few seconds, and thankfully the fantastic Broncos defense managed to stand up and wouldn't allow them in. But -4 against the Colts. I'm worried about Indianapolis this week, and I've got Jonathan Taylor on my redraft team. Tom, worried about him
Okay,
big time. Worried about him big
that's
time
fair.
this week.
It's the first non-biased pick we've seen.
Yeah, I've also got Josh Downs as well, but he might play. He might play. I'm not sure with Josh Downs, but I don't know how Indianapolis are going to move the ball. Anthony Richardson sucks. We've literally had a season of him almost now, and he's just not been fantastic. Look, he's good at running the ball. He can move the ball with his legs, but his completion percentage in the passing game is utterly woeful. The last few weeks, 30 attempts, 20 completions. 2 weeks ago, 28 pass attempts, 11 completions. 24 attempts last week, 12 completions. And now your reward for that is to go and face Denver, one of the best defenses in the entirety of the league. And it's not a case of in years gone past. It's not just the case that Denver are a very good defense. They're a very good offense as well. Bo Nix is clicking. The run game, I kind of like what they're doing. I hate what they're doing for our job because we don't know which one it's going to be. But they've got like 4 running backs, and it's just whoever clicks on the week. Whoever goes out there, makes their big first play, you're the guy for this week. Cortland Sutton's been fantastic. Their young receivers are coming good. I think Denver will beat the Colts quite easily. We're in Denver as well. That's going to be a big help. I like Denver. Give me the Broncos -4. They will beat the Colts, Tom.
I don't hate it. I really don't. And you're 1 from 1 when taking Denver on the handicap. So I completely agree that this is the right spot for you. To me, this feels a bit like a scrap of a game and anything can happen. It feels a bit like a 1-score game. If Denver win by 7 points, then it's great. It doesn't really matter. But I feel like it's going to be relatively tight. Hopefully it lands for you. Shall I move on to my last play?
Yeah, go for it. I'm looking forward to this one. This is going to be really good. This is a guaranteed winner.
There are 2 games on Monday night this week, so don't get
Yeah.
confused when you don't see this game instantly. 2 games on Monday night. I'm going to be looking at the Vikings matchup. They play against the Bears, I think it is. I'm going to be taking TJ Hawkinson over 40.5 receiving yards. That's a 10-11. Everyone's going to be looking at Justin Jefferson or Jordan Addison here. Do you remember when these 2 teams played about 3 or 4 weeks ago?
Yeah, was that not Hawkinson just getting everything?
Hawkinson went 7 catches for 114 yards.
There you go.
Jordan Addison, I believe, went for over 100 yards and 2 TDs. And I put up Justin Jefferson overs on receiving yards, and he had 1 catch on 4 targets. They were cuddling Justin Jefferson in the backfield. Do you know that Justin Jefferson in the NFL this year, and I know I'm not even tipping Justin Jefferson, but here's a fact. Justin Jefferson in the NFL this year has drawn more PI calls than any other wide receiver, and they've equated to over 300 yards. Did you know that? It's ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah, that's wild.
The corners are literally just stopping him from catching the ball. Okay, so you have to equate that in. Obviously, he's going to get some production. He's going to do better than the first matchup against the Bears, but the game plan is going to be the same. They're going to try and stop Justin Jefferson by doing anything they can, whether that is PIs, holding, anything, double teaming, could be anything. Jordan Addison may have a good game once again, and we've seen in recent weeks, he goes one-on-one and he's just a dynamic receiver, and he hits his overs, he gets touchdowns because of it. He could have a good game, but I feel like the Bears are going to know that Addison is now the proper threat if they do the same to Jefferson. So he may be limited as well. Therefore, TJ Hawkinson comes in. He's going to take advantage once again. As I say, in this previous matchup, 114 yards on 7 catches. The line is set to just 40.5 in this game. I love Hawkinson in this spot. I feel like he's going to get a lot of production. He's going to be the guy that moves the chains. It's very much like Trey McBride, but he's not going to get as many targets as McBride would get. His line is just too low. It should be around 60, in my opinion, which would be high for a tight end, but it's worthy in this kind of matchup. So give me Hawkinson Monday night. Hopefully we're celebrating a winner.
Yeah, I think one thing to add with Jefferson as well, Jalen Johnson's on the other side for Chicago. He's done a great job at locking down wide receivers this year, including Justin Jefferson. I was going to put up Aaron Jones in this game, but I don't love his fumbling problems in the last few weeks, and also Cam Akers is having a few or getting a few more snaps. So Hawkinson the play for Tom. Let's dive straight in with our selections. Selections brought to you by our sponsors SBK. Leave a like down below, comment your favorite picks this week as well, and also subscribe to the Turf and Touchdowns podcast. Tom, I'll let you go.
5 plays this week. First up, give me Nick Chubb for the Cleveland Browns. Over 40.5 rushing yards at 10-11. They play the Kansas City Chiefs. Selection 2, Tyreek Hill for the Miami Dolphins. Over 66.5 receiving yards at 10-11. I should say all of these lines are accurate at the time of recording. They may have changed, both myself and Luke, by the time you watch this, but they're all accurate at the time of recording. Selection 3, Amon-Ra St. Brown for the Detroit Lions. Over 69.5 receiving yards at 10-11. Selection 4, Monday Night Football, TJ Hawkinson over 40.5 receiving yards for the Minnesota Vikings against the Chicago Bears. That's also 10-11. And finally, my play of the day, selection number 5, Trey McBride, Arizona Cardinals, over 68.5 receiving yards, 10-11, hopefully a winner.
I've got 4 for this week. Pick 1, David Montgomery for the Detroit Lions, over 57.5 rushing yards, like that at 10-11. Denver Broncos minus 4 at 10-11. That's the second pick. And then we've got a couple of Adam Thielen bets. Adam Thielen over 50.5 receiving yards. I like that one. And if that one lands, then my other one will probably land as well. And that's my play of the day. Adam Thielen over 4.5 receptions. That's 20-23. It's a slightly shorter price, but I love that. I don't see any way that Adam Thielen doesn't catch at least 5 balls, and that will cash that bet for us. Tom, you need to go do actual real life work now, so we'll cut this one a little bit short, but thank you for your company once again this week. We'll do it again next week.
Yes, let's do it next week. Hopefully this has been a really profitable podcast. It wasn't the case for me last week, so I'm trying to make amends. You're just trying to go 4 from 4. You had 4 winners last week. Why can't you do it again?
Exactly. We won 100% week. But that's the Turf and Touchdowns podcast for week 15. Leave your favourite picks down below, and also the bets for yourself. We will be back next week previewing week 16. We are on the road to the playoffs, and hopefully we're both still live in fantasy football. Until next week, stay safe, look after one another. Goodbye.